Hello and welcome to episode 265 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. In State Line, Nevada, I'm Nathan Fox. With me in Vienna, Virginia is Ben Olson, and in Vancouver, British Columbia, Jackson Chemis. How you guys doing?
Great.
Doing great, yeah.
Jackson is with us today to talk about a new feature we've added to the LSAT Demon website. It's a scholarship calculator. We'll get to that in just a second. We also have today a Pearls versus Turds for you. We have an email about a listener, a student who's questioning their own intuition on the LSAT. We have a question about whether you should write an addendum for a big jump in LSAT scores. Probably not, or a very short addendum. We have a question about whether to wait or to apply now. And then we have a personal statement from Victor. Victor was a student of mine in San Francisco in the before times, and has been waiting patiently for us to review his personal statement. So brace yourself, Victor, for that. This show will air on Monday, September 28th. That means you have a few days if you're signed up and registered for the October LSAT Flex. That starts October 3rd. We also have the November LSAT Flex starting on November 7th, and it's too late already to sign up for that test because for some damn reason you have to sign up for the LSAT 7 weeks before the actual test. You can email the show anytime. Please do email the show. That's how we make our show agendas. help@thinkinglsat.com. If you want to be included on our website, social media stuff, you can send us a selfie when you do that. But please just send in your question or your Pearls versus Turds submission or whatever. Again, that's help@thinkinglsat.com. If you're so inclined, leave us a review on iTunes. It's the only way that people ever find us. We don't advertise the show at all. So hit the 5 stars and write a few words about the show on iTunes. We really do appreciate that. I think we're ready to dive in. Jackson, can you just tell us a little bit about how you ended up with us? You're a big part of the Demon team these days, so why don't you just explain your role with us?
Yeah. Well, I was a student of both of you guys kind of through private tutoring. And then I, applied with Ben and got linked on, and then just kind of started tutoring more and more and becoming more involved in the team. And now I'm in charge of the ask button requests for questions that people have for explanations. I don't write all of them. We have lots of writers, but I kind of triage them and do write some of them.
I'm curious, Jackson, how many writers do we have right now? I should know this. But
I'd say, well, we just hired a bunch of people. So with the new additions, I'd say 8 active writers.
Yeah.
And then I also do the classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday of time section reviews, right? So we do a section and then we do a review right after. I do extra help on Fridays, kind of like office hours. And Saturdays I do the test review, and Sundays I do a class with Katie now. So
what's the team teaching like? I've been hearing good things about the Sunday class.
Sunday classes have been going really well. Yeah. I really enjoy teaching the Sunday class. I feel like Katie has been killing it. Katie is a new tutor who's going to Yale Law School, who is just fantastic. She knows her shit. So I love working with her. I think the students are really engaged on Sundays. It's a great class.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
So the reason we had you on the show today, Jackson, is that we wanted to tell all our listeners about this scholarship calculator. that you just created. Want to tell anybody or tell the listeners how that works and what your role was in creating it?
And where they can find it?
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. So the scholarship calculator, I try to make it as simple as possible. Basically what it is I went through all the 509 data so that students don't have to, or so that applicants don't have to, because going through all the 509 data it's a slog. Like, there's a lot of data. You have to kind of figure out, okay, where would I place here? Basically how the calculator works is it takes the data from all the schools, you put in your own GPA into a text field and your LSAT into a text field, and then it kind of computes, it estimates what your scholarship should be at each of the schools. And then tells you, you can rank them based on what schools you get full ride, what schools you'll get half ride, those kinds of things.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot for people on the show, but I still think there's a lot of confusion around, okay, I see there are some scholarship numbers on here, but how does that translate to my LSAT GPA? And it's not obvious, right? Which is why it is a slog. It's not like a simple, oh, well, here are your numbers, so this is the kind of money you're going to get. You've had to think about what it means for each school, and there's some data that we just also don't even have access to, right? So we're trying to estimate based on the numbers we see on the 509 so that people don't have to.
Yeah, and it is an estimate. But yeah, for each school, basically what I had to do was I had to kind of come up with some sort of calculation based on their index, which they also release, based on their LSAT and GPA, and kind of figure out, based on your LSAT and GPA for each school, how would they weight these two things? And then with that in consideration, where would you rank in their kind of scholarship considerations?
Yeah.
So I think, for the most part, I think it's pretty good. Like, the lower end up to the higher end stuff is pretty good. Where it gets a bit more estimate-y is if you're in that like 95th percentile, and it's like, at this point we don't know if their 95th percentile at a mid-ranked school is a 166 or a 175.
Yeah.
Right. We just don't know if like there's that big of a jump once you get to the 95th.
Yeah. Because the only numbers we know is the 75th and the 25th and the 50th, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, so one thing is, okay, so just in case users are curious, you can find this at lsatdemon.com/scholarships. Again, that's lsatdemon.com/scholarships. Would you be willing to walk us through a couple examples, like hypothetical students, so that you can kind of say what they would find?
Yeah, for sure. So if we have, the one that I always plug in, just because I feel like it's relatively average, would be something like if you had a 3.5 and a 160, right? So if you have a 3.5 and a 160, you put that in, you hit enter.
I'm doing it right now, Jackson.
So am I. I did it already. The best full ride I can get. Penn State, Carlisle.
And then the schools, so, straight through to the 15th ranked school, you're not getting anything, right?
Yep.
The first school where you might get something is University of Texas, Austin, right? So you'll get, what this is telling you is that you can expect some tuition between 0 and half tuition from University of Texas, Austin. And what I think is, if you see something like this, and it goes down right through, and you eventually do hit, Penn State, Carlisle, you get a full tuition. What I think this tells you is that if this school is giving you anything less, right, like, you should be telling them you are worth more to them than they're treating you. At least to a degree. This obviously doesn't take into consideration soft factors or like other factors beyond numbers, but on average, at a school like University of Texas, Austin, they should be giving you some money.
There's a big blue feedback button at the top of the page, and we do really want, it also says beta on it. So this is by no means perfect. We're doing the best we can to estimate. In fact, maybe that's what we need to name this, is like scholarship estimator or something. But please hit the feedback button if you see something that seems strange, or if you can think of ways that we can improve the tool. I think that this could be really useful just to give people an idea, right? So like if you're the 3.5 160, I mean, I would be scrolling down looking for green, basically, right?
Yeah, well, the feature I like is hitting the actual cost column, because we talk about scholarships versus actual costs. You can sort by scholarships and figure out which schools are going to give you the most money, but that's not necessarily the best bargain. I just sorted by actual cost, and it puts Penn, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Rutgers, and Appalachian School of Law right at the top, and they're all green. So,
Yeah.
Anyways, that's cool, Jackson. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else we want to say about the scholarship calculator? I mean, people just need to get in there and play around with it, right? That's the best thing we can.
Yeah.
We can
do.
Cool. All right. Well, that was fast. Jackson, you gonna hang out for a while, or do you have to run?
Yeah, I'll hang out for a half hour. I've got something at 10 that I have to go do. So.
Okay, cool. Just tell us bye when you're ready to go, and you can just drop out. We'll continue chatting.
I did have a question just for Jackson before we jump into these things. So a lot of times when people like start teaching the LSAT, and especially writing explanations, right? Because writing an explanation really forces you to reckon with what your reason is for why something is right or wrong. I was wondering if you had any ahas or takeaways since taking over that job.
That's a good question. I can't think of any particular ahas, but I know I've had them. And I know that since I've started doing it, I've gotten way better at the LSAT. Like I underestimated how helpful it is to learning if you can teach something. It's like, even, myself, I scored well on the LSAT. I come and teach the LSAT and I learn lots about it and get way better at it, tutoring it. But yeah, I can't think of any specific aha moments.
Okay. Just curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben, you want to read this pearls versus turds candidate?
Yeah, for sure. So pearls versus turds is where we take some received wisdom from the stratosphere, the universe, the internet. And well, that's where it usually feels like it's coming from, right? It just feels like it comes from the ether. And then we decide whether it's good advice or bad advice. Most advice out there is bad, unsurprisingly. This one is from Dean Sarah Zierfoss, Dean of Admissions at the University of Michigan. She apparently shared this on a recent YouTube video. It sounded exactly like what the guys always say. Thought I'd send it to you in case you're looking for podcast content. Okay. Dean Sarah says, regarding addressing difficult topics in personal statements and addenda, it could be just a matter of lawyerly training or lawyerly temperament, but lawyers tend to like the matter of fact approach. My dear husband is a lawyer, and he is an example of this. He rants at the weather forecasters when they say things like a balmy 75 or a chilly 39. He's like, I know what 75 degrees is. Don't tell me it's balmy. That's kind of a common theme for many lawyers. My point is, it is absolutely fine and appropriate to talk about details, but I would maintain a certain level of distance. One trick that I sometimes use when I'm in this situation is I pretend that I'm representing myself, that I am my own client, like I bifurcate myself. Okay, you split yourself in half. That helps me get a bit of distance that I think makes me more successful in communicating than spilling all of my feelings would be. Okay, I think she's trying to get at the right goal, but her advice is kind of vague. So I'm not sure users would know what to do with this.
It's a little wordy. I mean, it's like transcribed from a YouTube video. So she's
Yeah.
just talking. So I can't really blame her for, being a bit wordy. The tip here is she could have said it better, but basically just use the facts, but not the conclusions about the facts.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, what she's pointing out here is specifically where her husband is editing the weather forecaster.
Mm-hmm.
What he's doing there is he's taking out the adjectives and the adverbs
Yeah.
and the conclusions, and he wants them to just stick with the facts. I think that's a pretty good tip for personal statements.
Yeah, I think it's, and addenda in particular. That's what I was thinking about most, I guess. But
Yeah.
I think it's a good goal. I don't think her advice is super helpful. I think it could be confusing too. Like, I'm representing myself. I could see people like getting all fiery, and that's not what you want people to do.
Because so many applicants don't actually know what lawyers do, or like all they have is like, the scene from A Few Good Men in their head, and they just think that like they're supposed to be like this dramatic whatever courtroom person. So yeah, I can't quite endorse this as a pearl.
I think it's like a tie, maybe.
Give it a tie. Jackson, what do you think?
Yeah,
You could break
honestly,
the tie, Jackson. You could break the tie.
No, I'd give it a tie too. I would almost give it a turd. Like I didn't even understand what the hell she was talking about when you read it. So
okay, well, we're just as happy to throw something in the turd pile.
Maybe the tip was right at the top. Lawyers tend to like the matter of fact approach. So if it's
it started off good. She should just stop there.
If it's stick to the facts, don't make any conclusion. You don't even need the conclusions, right? If your facts are good enough, you don't need the conclusion.
Yeah.
You can just lay out the facts that make you look like a baller. Then you don't need to say I'm a baller. In fact, you shouldn't say I'm a baller, because then nobody believes you. If you just instead
you don't sound like a baller anymore.
Demonstrate your ballertude, then then people reach that conclusion on their own, and that is better writing. So I think her heart's in the right place. We can give her a tie. All right. Next email.
Yeah.
Okay. This says the title is Prep Confusion. Hi, Nathan and Ben. I just found your podcast and I'm working through the episodes from the beginning. So many good laughs. That being said, the answers to my questions are probably buried in shows I have yet to hear, so I apologize for any redundancy! ! A couple weeks ago, I took the June 2007 test for a diagnostic and scored a 152 cold. Logic games, 8 out of 23. Logical reasoning, 18 and 20 out of 25. Reading, 17 out of 25. The logic games portion was devastatingly bad. I was most comfortable with logical reasoning. Most of the incorrect were unanswered at the end of the section. And similarly, I was comfortable with reading, but wasn't mindful of time and did not make it to the last passage in the section. Thereafter, I purchased an LSAT Max package via the company that will not be named. I chose this because the self-paced timeline was helpful with my unpredictable work schedule. They really sell this self-paced timeline. I was talking to somebody on the phone the other day about a self-paced timeline, and this was like a reason to purchase LSAT Max.
I don't know.
I'm very confused.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. Our
The
whole shit
schedules have
is
been sold
self-paced.
for so long, right?
I
Like, oh, here's
know.
the schedule. It's like 3 months. It's like
Well,
you have a daily checklist of what you have to go through. I'm like, dear God,
it's
please
the
save
exact
me.
opposite of self-paced. It's not,
It's predetermined.
it's a predetermined one size fits all timeline. And people think they need it. Like people think it's good for them because it's a self-paced timeline. Listen, we're very helpful to help. We're very happy to help you create your own actually self-paced timeline. You come to class. I'll do that. I'll help you. Come to my office hours. Come to extra help with Jackson. Come to any of Jackson's timed sections. Come to Jackson and Katie's Sunday class. We're more than happy to help you build your own self-paced time. I just don't understand. Okay, anyway, sorry. Tangent. However, in the last couple of weeks, working on the modules, I don't feel like I'm making much progress, and if anything, find myself a bit confused. I'm beginning to be unsure about things I was previously certain of. Example, trying to apply all the strategies to something that was previously intuitive, and I'm now having doubts. Have you received similar feedback? Despite the large purchase, I'm wondering if I should pursue a different prep option. Tutoring would be ideal, but it is cost prohibitive for me. Or maybe I just need to give it more time? Additionally, do you have a typical score ceiling that you see for students with a diagnostic like mine? I want to do the best I can, but don't want to be unreasonable about potential improvement. Thank you, E.
Well, I quickly want to dive into her last question, or him or her. I don't know who wrote this in, but
Right.
I scored a 153 cold diagnostic, and I ended up with a 176. So I would consider you in a great starting position. Also, most people start between 140 and 155, and so 152 is definitely on the high end. I mean, actually, 155 is pretty high starting, so I wouldn't even necessarily say that most people start there. But also, given the fact that you're scoring poorly in games, which is the easiest section to improve, you're in a great position to score as high as possible. I don't know where you're going to end up, but there's no reason to give you a ceiling.
Yeah, cold 152. That's like that's Yahtzee, dude. That's like what we're looking for. We're hoping for, I mean, a cold 152, especially bad in games.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit. 170
Yeah.
something. We see 20-point improvements all the time these days. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not even like remarkable to see somebody improve by 20 points these days.
Yeah. I'll tell you what the ultimate self-paced schedule or timeline is. It's the demon drilling. It just decides for you. And you just drill.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's why, actually thinking back on it, that's why the demon was created in the first place. It's like, I would try to give out homework to people, and I would have 40 questions, and a third of them would be hard, a third of them would be easy, and a third of them would be in the middle. And for some people, 2/3 of those questions were a waste of their time. For other people, 2/3 were likewise a waste of their time because they were too hard, right? It's just like all these predetermined things just don't work.
Yeah. And if you want help from a human, you can get help from a human with Demon Live. You don't need private tutoring. With a 152, you don't need private tutoring. I mean, tutoring is cost prohibitive. Tutoring is very expensive. You have to pay a really smart person for their hours, like directly for their time. Well, we charge a lot for that. So sign up for a class and sign up for our class because our shit's the best. Sign up for Demon Live. It's $295 a month. We have multiple events 7 days a week on Zoom. And you can come ask me questions. You can ask Jackson questions. You can ask all of our whole team questions. We are all professional LSAT tutors, and we can help you a lot. And it will be only $295 a month instead of, hundreds of dollars per hour with one-on-one tutoring. Starting with a 152, you're an amazing candidate, and we can help you a ton. So I don't want this whole thing to sound like a commercial, but it sounds like LSAT Max is doing you a disservice. Let's directly talk about this
Trying to
questioning
apply.
things. Well,
Yeah.
the questioning things that used to be intuitive, trying to apply all the strategies to things that were previously intuitive. God damn it, I've heard that 1,000 times in my LSAT teaching career. It's because of the theory first approach to teaching instead of the practical approach to teaching. The way we do it, we give you an LSAT question, and if you get it right, we move on to the next one. If you get it wrong, well then okay, now we're going to talk about it. But we're not going to weigh you down with a bunch of unnecessary theories and strategies and modules and shit. People fall prey to this because they think that 152 is a bad starting score. It's not. It's an awesome starting score. With the 152, you intuitively understand 2/3 of the test. That's awesome. You know why you understand it? Because it fucking makes sense. The test makes sense. If you read carefully, the test makes sense. Our whole philosophy of teaching the LSAT is it makes sense. Oh, you missed this one? Okay, no problem. We'll talk about it. We'll talk through it. And if you need some theory to help you understand it, we'll give you that. But be careful with what books and what classes and shit you use, because I've seen a lot of people stagnate at a pretty good starting score, and then they just never improve because they lose all of that intuitive common sense understanding of the test. They replace that with a bunch of stupid theories and tips and strategies that aren't even helpful.
Yeah, I'm curious, Jackson, what happened when you started studying? Did you just stumble upon the podcast, or did you start with some other course or book, or what?
When I started studying, I think the day I started studying, Khan came out. And so the first thing I went to was the Khan Academy LSAT.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent about a week on that and decided it was horrible. Like it was completely limited in what resources you could have. And like the explanations I didn't like. I knew they were wrong. Like I just didn't like most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just kind of stumbled across the podcast, started listening to the podcast. When I started studying, the Demon wasn't out yet. So I just bought all the books because my test was still pen and paper. Actually, I took the July test that was half pen and paper, half digital.
Oh, July 2019, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just bought all the books, bought Nathan's books, listened to the podcast, did private tutoring. And then the Demon came out just near the end of my studying. Because I studied for quite a span, kind of on and off.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to hear how people just their LSAT journey, what they encounter first. I mean, Kaplan's another big player out there. But it sounds like you went from Khan and then you just started searching like podcasts or something, or?
Yeah, I was working at the time, a day job, kind of. And so during my day job, I was like, well, I kind of want to be studying this material just the way I am. So I would just I looked up LSAT in podcasts, found the podcast, and just started going through them, put them on during work.
Yeah.
Just listen to them.
Cool. I'm glad you avoided the Khan trap.
Well, yeah, I remember using Khan for math in college. Right. I took a math course and it was really good. Like I understood it completely. As soon as I read the LSAT stuff, I was like, this is bullshit. They don't know what they're talking about.
The thing is, they're not even getting it from Khan. I don't think anyone at Khan wrote them. I think they got them from LSAC, which for some reason can't explain its own test.
I'm not sure that's right, Ben. I think the person who wrote the LSAT stuff is a tutor for lots of other tests via Khan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the problem isn't the problem isn't that it's not Khan. The problem is that it is Khan, not Mr. Khan, but someone
Oh,
who
I thought
is.
they were using the explanations from like Super Prep and
I
stuff,
don't
which
think
is
well,
horrible.
maybe that's in there too, but I just recently was talking to a student who actually was getting one-on-one tutored by the person who wrote the Khan shit for LSAT.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
And they advertise.
right, I was the one that wrote the shit for Khan, right? But they specifically were not an LSAT expert. They are a smart person is who scored high on all of the different tests. And I'm sorry, but you take one look at that Khan shit and it's just not right. It's overly theoretical,
Mm-hmm.
and the theory is wrong.
Jeez.
Right? I mean, they start going off about principal questions. That's technically incorrect. That's just not
Yeah.
that's not there is no such thing. It's not. It
Yeah.
is not a useful concept. The word principle, it doesn't mean anything on the LSAT. You can actually line it out and it means nothing. You can actually
Yeah.
remove it from most questions and it doesn't change the meaning whatsoever.
Yeah.
But then they're going off theoretically about, oh, well, when you see a principal question, here's what you're supposed to do. It's heavy-handed, boring theory that is actually incorrect.
Yeah.
So they're not doing anybody any favors with that free prep. I'm glad they gave away some tests. Doing the tests is useful. You do not want to be reading those Khan explanations. They're not helpful. Next email?
Yeah. Thanks, E.
Yeah, thanks, E. Hey, as E works their way through our podcast, eventually they'll come to the point where the demon gets invented. So they can then abort from LSAT Max and start studying with the demon. Trust me, it's way better. Okay, addenda for big LSAT jump. Ben, you want to take this email?
Sure. Dear Ben and Nathan, as I get my documents in order for the upcoming admissions cycle, I'm stuck on whether or not to write an addenda about my LSAT scores. When I first took the test in 2018, I was a full-time student working 30 plus hours a week and ultimately scored a 161. However, I took the July LSAT Flex and scored a 177, which I attribute to having a steady full-time job and the ability to set up a consistent study schedule. I'm sure it's common for people to improve on a retake, but some schools are asking for addenda if your scores have significant discrepancies. What would you do? I don't know that I would go down the excuse route. If they want an addenda explaining a significant discrepancy, just say, I knew I could do better, so I took it again. And leave it at that.
Scoreboard. Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. How many emails did you get, Ben, this last, when the August Flex scores came out? How many emails did we get with people talking about 20-point improvements?
I don't know how many we got, but it's so many more than we've ever gotten before. And
dozens.
Like we had like 3 180s, right? At
Right.
least.
Right.
And that's not counting the ones who didn't reach out. I'm like, holy smokes. I don't know what's going on.
Right. So you can improve a ton on the LSAT. It's a fact.
Yeah.
And if your official score, like you took it before you were fully ready, unfortunately, and you have a 161 on record, and then you started studying with us probably and ended up with a 177. And yeah, I really, one sentence, 2 sentences, I knew I could do better. My practice test scores indicated that I could do better, so I took it again.
Yep.
They can ask you a follow-up if they want, but we've never heard of anybody, like admissions committees, that don't actually ask people, right?
We all know that a lower initial official score is just a practice test score that's been revealed on your record.
Yeah.
It's just like the idea that the 177 test takers didn't work to get there.
I have a hypothesis. which my hypothesis was recently confirmed by another bit of data. But my hypothesis is that they're asking you this question because they're fishing to see if you're stupid enough to disclose that you were accommodated for the retake.
Oh, very interesting.
Okay, this was a
Don't have
hypothesis
to. Yeah.
that I've had for a long time. But let me read to you a question. This is a question on someone texted me this. So this is from UW-Madison. This is from their real application. Question number 20. Note, the following question is optional in bold.
Because they don't want to get in trouble with the ADA.
No, this is like illegal for them to ask this question. The following question is optional, but the information helps the admissions committee have a fuller understanding of you as a candidate. Do you have a disability that you believe the admissions committee should take into account in evaluating your file? Question mark.
Oh my goodness. They just went out and asked it.
We encourage you to provide further information in your personal statement. Then bold. This is purely voluntary and confidential. If you are admitted, a separate process will be used to request and determine reasonable accommodations. And then it's a yes or no. Do you have a disability that you believe the admissions committee should take into account in evaluating your file?
Oh my gosh. And
are they even allowed to ask that as an optional question?
They are not. That has got to be illegal.
That has to be illegal.
Under the ADA, yeah. There's all sorts of shit under there that's going to prevent that, I would assume. We should have somebody on the show. But
it's a reading comp issue, right? It's an optional question, and that's a question that you should not answer. You do not answer that, or you just put no and just move on. It's a radio button.
You have to choose.
Well, it says it's optional, but it's a radio button, and I don't know whether it defaults to yes or no.
That's going to help. A lot of people are going to think that's going to help their application.
Exactly.
Like, oh, I have a disability, so I'm going to say, and even if you don't, you say yes, so that they treat you with.
And what's actually going to happen?
Yeah.
What's actually going to happen, Ben? If you check yes on that and you put in your personal statement that you have ADHD?
It's going to go against you. Especially.
Why? What are they going to think?
That you got extra time on the LSAT, which means your score is bogus.
Yes.
Not bogus. I'm sorry, it's not bogus.
No, but it is bogus. They give too much extra time, Ben. It's not fair.
Yeah.
When people improve their score by like 10 points or 15 points instantly when they get accommodated. Instantly. And it's not fair. I mean, I have a recent one-on-one tutoring student who didn't know about accommodations. I told him about accommodations. He gets double time now. And he immediately went from like couldn't possibly crack 160 to regularly scores in the 170s.
Yeah.
And it's because he's rich and had a fancy private tutor who told him that you could get accommodated, and he got accommodated. If he checks yes on that question, because, you know, he thinks that they're asking it with like an open heart or open, you know, like, oh, we want to know, we really want to accommodate, we want to help you, you know. They immediately look at that and they go, oh, 170, yeah, they like roll their eyes. Okay, well, you were accommodated, so of course you scored super high.
Yeah.
It's a broken system. The law schools know it's broken, and so now they're fishing to see if you'll tip your hand, basically.
Yeah.
Don't tip your hand. If you have a reasonable case for accommodations, you should get accommodated. It's a crazy advantage. You should do it if you can. Yeah. But then do not tell the schools that you were accommodated.
Jackson, you want to weigh in on this exciting issue?
I just think it's crazy that they would ask that. I mean,
yeah, I'm surprised they are. They're a law school. I mean, they would know this law inside and out, I think. They'd have professors who have taught about the ADA.
Maybe the disclaimer that it's an optional question
is enough.
Somehow makes it legal.
But
you
is it
know,
optional if it's a radio button? I guess you just don't even select.
if it doesn't have a
Once you've
default
selected
answer,
something, you can't unselect a
yeah,
radio
that's
button.
Yeah,
probably
that's
true.
how they
Yeah.
get you.
I don't know, man. I'm not sure you're allowed to like. Like I'm thinking about interview questions, right?
Exactly. If you're in an interview and you ask someone if they're disabled, like that doesn't seem. But
Or
then
like
you
if you,
say, "Oh, it's optional. You don't have to answer. You
it's
can
a
sit
different
there and be quiet."
it's a different legal issue, but like, you're not allowed to ask women if they plan to have kids, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, does it make it magically better if you're like, now this is an optional question.
Do
You
you
don't have
plan
to
have
answer
kids?
this, but do you plan to have kids?
And just like look at their reaction. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I'm surprised they're asking it. And about the accommodations thing, that Ninth Circuit case is what required LSAC to make the minimum accommodation time and a half, which blows my mind. Before, I guess you could get 40 minutes or something, or I don't remember that, but
It's
it's a
wild that
weird
time and a half
requirement.
is the minimum. That's
I've never
insane.
heard of someone getting rejected for accommodations.
No,
No,
no.
that's the modern world. Before the case, I almost never heard of anyone getting accommodations. People
Right.
would ask me in class. I remember this pregnant student, speaking of pregnancy, who was like, "I am pregnant. I have to go to the bathroom all the time or something, and I have this other problem. And do you think I'll get accommodations?" And I remember talking to her in the hall, and I was like, "Have you ever had accommodations before?" And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "No, you probably won't get it. Sorry. Good luck." And now it's completely flipped. It's a whole new world. It's the
Crazy.
upside down.
Yeah, any doctor's note, your normal physician, and it doesn't have to be anything real. It doesn't have to be dyslexia. It could be like,
No, back pain.
I have back pain. I need it really gives me I have a hard time focusing because of my ingrown hair that I have, and
That's gross.
I need I need reasonable accommodations, and they just immediately just stamp it. Boom, time and a half. There you go.
That's their minimum.
And let's be clear. Hey, we're fairly progressive folks here. I'm not saying that that the ADA shouldn't exist, or that we shouldn't accommodate blind people with a braille test and extra time. I'm fully willing to give reasonable accommodations, but time and a half is too much extra time for most people. And most people who take the test in normal time, most people don't finish. Most people shouldn't finish in 35 minutes. But in 53 minutes, oh my God, it's...
Yeah. Think about how many people are like, if only I had 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes would be there's so many students with 5 more minutes, they would get like 2 more questions per section, or like
They'd
an
finish
entire
a
extra
game.
game.
Yeah.
Or finish a reading comprehension passage and get all those questions right. And they're not getting 5 extra minutes. They're getting 18 extra minutes with time and a half.
Yeah.
And with double time, they're getting 35 extra minutes. And it's too much. It's not a reasonable accommodation. It does not level the playing field. It's too much extra time.
Well, it's funny too, when we're fielding questions, especially from like double time students who are like asking how to deal with all the time. They're like, now their problem is like, well, I'm going to be there so long. How do I manage this? I'm like, I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's hard to feel sorry for somebody who's getting double time. I mean, like whatever. I'm not questioning that you have issues or whatever it is that got you that accommodation. I don't know. Do some meditation, take a nap, whatever. Because it is. I mean, it's so crazily extra time. It's just. I guess we should make a point here that if you are going to request accommodations, don't do the thing of, I want to make sure that I get time and a half, so I'm going to ask for double time. Because if you ask for double time, you're probably going to get double time. And double time is uncomfortably long for a lot of people. I mean, it's just way too much time.
Yeah.
So careful what you wish for, and get your reasonable accommodations. If you're entitled to them, get them. But it's hugely valuable. I mean, it's over the top valuable.
It's a fair proposition that it's worth $100,000.
Well, yeah. I mean,
if not more.
my student that I was talking about earlier, the rich kid who got private tutoring, and the primary value he got out of the private tutoring was me telling him, wait, what? You had accommodations in college? You definitely get accommodated on the LSAT. But yeah, he went instantly. I'm telling you, instantly. He went from like 157 to like 167. And that's worth $100,000. You can look at the scholarship calculator and you can figure out that that's worth $100,000. LSATdemon.com/scholarships. Play with the numbers. You'll see.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, Jackson, I thought you said you had an out. Are you out of here?
Yeah, I got to get going. Thanks for
Awesome.
reminding me. Yeah, have a good one, guys.
I'm not trying to kick you out of here. Thanks, Jackson, for showing up. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Ben, okay, I think it's my turn, huh?
Yeah.
To wait or to apply? Hi, Ben and Nathan. I have listened to your podcast for over a year now, and I know you typically advise people to wait a year if they do not feel their score and application are representative of their full potential. I have been studying 2 years, not continuously, for the LSAT and have a score of 157 and a 3.8 GPA. I didn't make real LSAT improvement until I started using the Demon. The last 2 falls, around September or October, I backed out of applying with the thought that I could continue to study and get a higher score and apply September 1st of the following cycle. Since this has happened 2 times already, and now we are in September again, I am feeling like a broken record. I am usually the type of person who just has to work at things longer than others to get the same results. I'm totally okay with doing the work, but also don't want to just keep pushing this out because I am also a perfectionist who needs to feel like I did all that I could possibly do to kill this test. I am in Wisconsin, and I am applying to state schools in the Midwest. I am taking October Flex to try to hit a 160. I have a lot of connections here and am part of the Wisconsin Association for Justice. Am I overthinking this and should just apply with what I have? Or am I being stupid and should get over myself and wait 1 more year? Thank you for your honesty and help. R. So R is going to have to deal with the illegal Madison question about disabilities.
Yeah.
I mean, this makes me want to play with the scholarship calculator a little bit. Let me type this in.
Okay.
157 and a 3.8.
Yeah.
Helpfully, whoa, why am I not getting any results right now on the law school scholarships?
I just got them.
Weird.
Maybe refresh.
I'm getting, that's not your, oh, I put them in the wrong boxes. Haha. I see. You can also search for schools. I'm going to put Wisconsin. Well,
Yep.
University of Wisconsin Law School. It says half to full tuition with a 3.8 and a 157. I mean, half to full. It's a pretty broad range. When I change the numbers to 3.8 and 167, it still says half to full. If you really are looking at University of Wisconsin Law School, which is a pretty high ranked school, I'm not sure it's going to matter. But I don't know. Ben, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I have this feeling that I could be wrong, but I have this feeling that, wait, who is this? R. The R is almost like looking at this like, oh, I'm gearing up for September 1st. I'm going to take the test in time for that, and then I'm going to apply. And if I don't make it, it feels like R is like backing off the studying or something. Like I would be shooting for October, trying to get the best score you can get. If you're not happy with a 160, and which you may or may not get in October, then push it back to November. It's like these things should be pushed back incrementally, not oh, I'm not going to apply this cycle and take the gas off. I feel like, because, R says earlier, not continuously. It kind of feels like
Right.
R geared up and then is like, oh, it's not going to happen this year. Forget it. And then walked away almost from the test, at least more than I would like to see.
Yeah, there's no way that R has been studying continuously in the Demon and not improved. I mean, it's just, that doesn't happen. So that was my first hypothesis as well, was just getting so attached to September, but then not really preparing to get ready for the LSAT. And the next thing you know, it's September, October. It's weird how I've just seen it a million times, right? We see people all the time who are like, well, I really want to push now, because I really want to take the November test and then apply. And it's like, okay, you should pretty much already be thinking about the next cycle, but you should be working hard on your prep now. Take the LSAT as many times as necessary to get a score that reflects your actual ability. And then once that's in the bank, then you should think about applying.
Yeah.
People like weirdly attach the test and their application. There's no law that says you have to apply the day your score comes out. I mean, ideally, your score would be in the bank, and then we apply in September. So we have no idea where R started, but so I can't. Am I overthinking this? Should I just apply with what I have? It's the beginning of your legal career. I don't think you're overthinking it.
I'm curious, would a 157 or a 160 get you a full ride somewhere in Wisconsin that you'd be happy to go to? If not, then I would keep going. I think that's generally the standard. If you can't get in somewhere that you'd be okay with going to for free, that's kind of an indication that you should keep going.
Yeah. If R has connections in Wisconsin, sounds like wants to stay in Wisconsin, applying to state schools, apply immediately with whatever you've got. I mean, they're taking the October flex, so hopefully they kill the October flex and have a 160 something and they can apply. But yeah, you just got to be willing to walk away if you get shitty offers. And at a state school in Wisconsin, you should be going for free. 3.8, man, that's nice.
It is great.
3.8 and a 165 should be a full ride for sure. So if they're going to try to charge you, like even what if they admit R on a 50% scholarship? That's not good. That's not, that's not what we're looking for. Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin Law School costs $44,000. So if they gave you a half scholarship, you're still going to have to pay them $22,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's more money. You don't have to pay that. Other people are going to be going there for free.
Yeah.
And if you improve your LSAT by 5 more points, you'd probably go for free. So be prepared to turn down bad offers if you apply prematurely. If you apply with less than your best LSAT score, you're going to get less than the best scholarship you could get. Probably, most likely. Check out the 509 reports for the schools you're applying to. It's also possible that a 157 is already above their 75th percentile, and a 3.8 is almost certainly above their 75th percentile. I guess there can be overkill in certain circumstances, right? Like if you know for sure you just want to go to Madison or whatever, you might already be overqualified, but we don't know. You have to look at the 509s. I mean, I can look it up real quick. Let's see. University of Wisconsin. Yeah, no, I mean, their 25th percentile is 156. So applying with a 157 is not gonna, they're not gonna back up the Brinks truck for you, scholarship wise. But their 75th percentile is only 164. So you move that 157 to a 165, which is fully possible. Your GPA is already above their 75th percentile. They gave 13% of their class more than full tuition.
So are we looking at the University of Wisconsin, the same one that's in the scholarship calculator?
Yes.
So we need to look at like why that's not adjusting once you go above 165.
Hey, it's in beta, Ben. Don't be too critical of the scholarship calculator. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, and it doesn't seem to make any difference there. If we bump it from 157 to 167, it doesn't change it, but it seems like it should. So, yeah, we'll talk to Jackson. I'm sure he'll. It's under development. So,
yep.
Okay, cool. Advice for R: probably get a 160 something. I mean, you can. You just got to work at it.
Stop focusing on the application cycle and start focusing on getting your best score as soon as you can. As soon as you can. And that may be November, that may be January, but once you have it, it's good for 5 years. So then you can turn your focus to when and how you will apply.
You know, think about it in, God, I got something in my throat. Think about it in terms of your legal career, right? It's the first step of your legal career. But what if we thought about it just in terms of this is the first step in an important case? Like if we make this a single case.
Sure.
Do you really want to rush in there and file something before you've got your shit together?
Yeah.
That's a good way to just lose your case before it even starts. And so this person has the LSAT and the application cycle weirdly attached together.
Yep.
You should separate those two. Work on the LSAT until you have the score that accurately reflects your true potential. Then go down to the courthouse and file your application. You can't be, I mean, it's almost like they're taking the LSAT on the way to submit their application. You know what I mean?
It's like they're stopping by the evidence room and they're like, just grab as much as you can.
Right. They're writing their brief on the way to the courthouse, and they're going to just file it. Well, I'll be either ready or I won't, whatever. I'll just get it as good as I can get it and file it. And that's not what we want to be doing. We want to make sure that thing is perfect when we file it. So take another year, but there's no reason to rush. Yep. You want to, I think that this is a well-meaning, I have no idea what the Wisconsin Association for Justice is, but I have a feeling that this is a person who wants to do good in the world.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do to do good in the world is to start by getting the best LSAT score you possibly can.
Yeah.
That's like when the cabin loses pressure and the masks drop down from the ceiling. You want to put the mask on yourself before you put the mask on someone else. You're a do-gooder. You want to pursue justice. Well, step one is to take care of your shit. which means get the best LSAT you can. Once you
Be
do
the
that,
best
you're going to
you
be,
can.
yeah, you're going to be much better. You're going to be much better equipped to pursue justice with a 167 than you are with a 157. Like there are certain avenues, there are certain halls, Ben, of justice that are just not open to 157s that you will find miraculously opening to you with a 167.
Yeah, that's true. And you also got to keep in mind that in your pursuit of your best LSAT score, you're not only getting a great number to put on your application, you're also getting smarter. So you're going to make law school easier for you. So this isn't like all just, oh, I got the number. That was a lot of effort for that number.
Right.
You're getting smarter. Jackson just talked about it at the beginning of the show. You understand how logic relates to each other, in better ways, and you just become a better law school student.
Yeah, you're going to be better at reading. You're going to be better at logically thinking through the issues, better at synthesizing. Yeah, it's a good point.
Cool.
Okay. Victor's personal statement. I'll read the email. You can read the statement itself. It says,
Okay.
"Hello, Ben and Nathan. I'm a longtime listener of the podcast, and I took the San Francisco class with Nathan. I was hoping you could shred my personal statement into pieces before it gets sent to T20 schools. I have tried to incorporate your podcast advice as much as possible. However, most people have told me that it reads too much like a resume and not enough like a personal statement. I tried to balance this out with my conclusion, which you will probably hate. Either way, one more set of kind eyes is greatly appreciated." That's a little man with the kind eyes joke for you, Ben. That's Victor. I remember Victor from my class in San Francisco.
Cool.
Rest in peace. No, I don't miss it at all. I love teaching LSAT on Zoom. It's so much better. Okay.
Alrighty. Yeah.
Brace yourself, Victor.
Okay. In March of 2020, I changed the course of an assistant director attorney's case.
District attorney, Ben. What's a director attorney?
I have no idea. Why is this all yellow, by the way?
Oh, it's because of the comment. Here, hold on. We can resolve this comment and then it won't be. Okay. Sorry, that's just a Google Docs thing.
I'm just trying to deflect.
Ben, I think you could have got extra time on the LSAT.
I think I probably could have.
Yeah. Let's reread that, Ben, from the top.
In March of 2020, I changed the course of an assistant district attorney's case.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, either way, I don't love this sentence because it's kind of like it's bordering on like a conclusion, and I'm pretty skeptical of it. I'm like, oh, okay. I'd rather hear a little closer to the facts of what happened as opposed to saying changed the course. That itself is a
vague,
subjective,
and a conclusion.
Yeah,
it is a conclusion. Now, I think that Victor. I think it's probably also a fact. I haven't read the rest of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to give Victor the benefit of the doubt that this is a fact.
Yeah.
But it's a bold fact. It's a conclusion that we have to see support for this, right? He's not just allowed to say that and then move on to something else.
Yeah.
He's going to have to provide justification for it. Well, if there's something in your statement that you have to provide justification for, then maybe you should just go with the justification instead of the conclusion that you have to justify.
I think what people don't realize is that the justification, because it's factual, is stronger. It's not just something that people are going to debate or question in their minds. They're just going to say, oh, okay. And then they draw the conclusion from that.
Exactly. What Victor's missing here is that he needs the reader. If he can Jedi mind trick the reader into reaching that conclusion on their own, the reader won't even realize it happened, the reader will just be like, oh, boy, good thing Victor was there, because this case, like Victor essentially, boy, he changed the course of this case. Like, he won the case.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say that, then the skeptical reader is just like, yeah, sure you did.
Yeah.
And it comes off as, oh, well, this is just another young paralegal
Naive.
who
They think
thinks
they had the.
they're a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. That said, a couple good things about this first sentence. It's short.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
The subject is I.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to use active language, right? I
Mm-hmm.
changed. Okay. That's I did a thing. So I think he's got the right idea here. It's just that he needs to get into the facts instead of the conclusion.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. I was sifting through the evidence for a grand theft auto and kidnapping case a week before the preliminary hearing date. As I peered at the mountain of unopened binders of evidence, I realized that we would not be prepared to testify at our current rate. I immediately called the attorney who would try the case and offered to work overtime. I spent the next week analyzing police reports, reading the officer's chronological log, and watching 24 hours of dashcam footage from the stolen vehicle. As the only Russian speaker in the office, I translated the conversations between the confidential victim, CV, and the defendant, highlighting abnormalities. The further I progressed, the more the initial story of the CV began to unravel. Well, I like that a lot of these sentences are factual. I like that it shows Victor seeing a problem and taking the lead on the solution. Like, hey, look, we need to slow down. I'll try to help as much as I can. It's
Let me
also
ask you
very
this. This is just
real.
yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
What is Victor wearing?
What is Victor wearing?
Uh-huh.
I didn't picture what Victor is wearing.
Okay. Now can you?
I'm imagining Victor's dressed up in the office.
Exactly. That
Yeah.
my point is I think Victor's wearing a tie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing. It makes me picture Victor as a lawyer. It's just he's in the office. He's in a law office doing law shit.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think I like about it the best, is that it's just it makes me immediately assume, like, oh yeah, no, this dude is inevitably going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to get too caught up on the clothes thing. I was just using that as like that's the picture you want to paint, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Victor is laying out all the steps that he's doing, which is great. And they're not crazy. It's not like one of my initial fears was he was going to be too much of like a lawyer. Like, oh, I found this problem in the reasoning. It's much more practical and down to earth. Hey, we don't have time to get through all this evidence. Let me try to help you get through it.
Yeah, and I'm starting to believe Victor's bold claim that he made at the top.
Although I still wouldn't make it.
No,
but yes.
Exactly. He doesn't need to make the claim, because if you just say what happened without the conclusion, I changed the course of the case. Hey, you're going through this, you're a week before the preliminary hearing, you're realizing that you're not going to make it on time, you're doing extra shit, working overtime to get it done, and that makes you look like a hard ass working lawyer.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you work your ass off. You do change the course of cases. So I could get to that conclusion on my own, which is great. All this supporting stuff is great.
I would, so in general, I have a presumption against defining terms and using acronyms and things like
Right.
CV. And although I realize this is a special term in your field, Victor, and some readers will be familiar with it as well, most won't be. And I don't think it's necessary. The question is always, is it helpful? And here you can just replace that with the victim. Just leave it as the victim. If you want to say confidential victim the first time, that's fine. And then from that then on, just call the person the victim. I don't see a need to continually emphasize that this is the confidential victim, the CV. So I would drop it.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else
And
about the first paragraph?
overall, I'd say it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's well written. The sentences
Yeah.
are short, declarative. I like that he threw in that he was the only Russian speaker in the office. It's just, hey, that's a feather in your cap, man. That's a nice thing to call out. I'm sure it's on your resume as well, but that one's worth throwing in there, I think.
If I were editing this, I would, we keep digging into the details. I would cut the whole March 2020 thing. I think it's an unnecessary detail. And when you add dates, it's like you're suggesting that that's important. If you really want to give time context, just say earlier this year or, in the spring of 2020. I don't know, even that, I just don't see the value of it right now, at least.
Yeah, I think you're right.
2 days before the preliminary hearing, Victor continues, I found a piece of evidence that altered the course of the entire case.
You already changed the course of the case in the first sentence of your first paragraph. Now you're changing the course of the case in the first sentence of your second paragraph. And again, it's just it's a conclusion.
Yeah. One conclusion is bad enough. Twice, hearing the same conclusion, it's like you're beating the person over the head with it. You're like, all right, I got it. Enough already. You're going to push them away even faster.
That sentence you just cut that sentence.
Yep. After watching the entirety of the dash cam footage, also it raises questions. 2 days before the preliminary hearing, why didn't you catch this earlier?
Also,
anyways,
is that your whole point? Is that you found one piece of evidence?
Yeah.
So
it's
what?
kind of your job.
Well, it's also kind of like, oh, so you got lucky?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's okay to tell the story. Use this anecdote by all means, but that conclusion is, see, that's the point though, right, Ben? Because he made that conclusion, we're dicks, so we start attacking.
Yep.
We're professionally trained to do this. The LSAT especially trains us to do this.
Yeah.
And so, Victor, you got to be real careful making conclusions when lawyers are around. So you could just cut that and just say the facts, just say what happened.
Next sentence. After watching the entirety of the dash cam footage, I highlighted a statement the CV made to the defendant that would eventually lead to the felony kidnapping charge being dropped. After noting this newfound evidence in my brief, I composed a list of witnesses that could testify to the CV's demeanor. Given my discovery, I rewrote the case introduction that would brief the judge presiding over the case to reflect the initial narrative's irregularities. I feel like, I don't know, I'm having trouble pinpointing what it is about this, but I feel like these little phrases like given my discovery and all this stuff, it's like Victor's trying too hard. Like if you did all this, Victor, there's enough meat here to make yourself look like a badass. You don't need to like try to keep emphasizing that it was due to your.
Yeah. How about my brief? That stuck out to me.
Yeah.
After noting this newfound evidence in my brief.
You wrote it? Just alone?
You're briefing the court? I think you definitely need to say our there.
Yeah.
We get it. We get it that you wrote it, and we get it that it might in fact be your brief, but Legally speaking, it's not your brief. Legally speaking, it's the assistant DA's brief.
And significantly so. I mean, even if you wrote it all and the DA signed off on it, they signed off on it after reading it.
The DA is the one that can lose their license because of this brief, not you.
Yeah.
So it's the DA's brief.
Yeah.
It became the DA's brief the second you handed it to the DA.
And the DA said it looks good.
And the DA signed it, like actually wrote their name on it and gave it to the judge.
And I'd be surprised if you didn't get feedback from the DA and made changes.
Yeah. So, okay. So, and don't get us wrong. Right now, this is like one of the best, I think this is one of the best personal statements we've read on the show.
Yeah.
Because it's factual. It has there's a lot of meat there. There's a lot to work with here.
Mm-hmm.
But Victor's doing that thing of just putting 5% too much salt, just and then it ruins the whole thing because Victor's trying to take too much credit for stuff instead of just, I want to go back to that tip, the pearls versus turd that we had earlier applies here perfectly, which is just, you don't need to say it's balmy. Say it's 75 degrees. Don't say it's balmy.
Yep.
Okay.
Next paragraph. Afterward, I edited the lead investigator's summary and drafted possible cross-examination questions that opposing counsel could ask our witnesses. On the day of the preliminary hearing itself, I helped coordinate the witnesses to ensure that questioning went as smoothly as possible. During the hearing, I suggested additional redirect examination questions to the assistant district attorney. These helped address potential issues that opposing counsel might raise concerning our case. I also prepared certified mugshots at the court's offices to be displayed as exhibits during the hearing.
I actually love all this.
Yeah, we're not stopping because most of these sentences are I sentences and they're telling us what you're doing.
And there's not any conclusions in this part. This is just, here's what I did. Again, I am picturing Victor not only in a tie, but Victor is wearing a suit now because he's at the case. I mean, he's at the courthouse. And so he's allowing me to assume that he is inevitably going to become a real actual lawyer. It just looks like a lawyer. You're doing lawyer shit. You're rubbing elbows with lawyers. And it's, I don't think this is rehashing the resume at all. In his email, he said that people have given him the feedback that it's too much like a resume. This isn't like a resume.
No, this is digging into a particular case at a job. You would never do that on a resume. You'd only talk about
you'd give your title, how long you were there, and like maybe a couple bullet points.
Yep.
And when we read, this is why resumes suck. Resumes are fucking worthless. I hate resumes. I don't ever show me a resume. I don't care.
Yeah.
But this is like bringing to life, oh, you're a legal assistant number 2 at the assistant district attorney's office. Okay. This is what you did there. So now I know what you did there. It's perfect. I love it.
I'd give it an A. To get an A+, Victor, here's some simple edits. On the day of the preliminary hearing itself, just drop the word itself.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you wanted to coordinate the witnesses to ensure that questioning went as smoothly as possible. You don't need, it's almost like adding very. You don't need the word very, and you don't need as smoothly as possible, just to say to ensure that questioning went well or smoothly.
Or how about I helped coordinate the witnesses, period.
Sure. You could just drop it all.
Like,
why else would you be doing it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Again, it's just like a little bit of like overselling. That seems to be Victor's like trap. He's an overseller.
This is one of those personal statements where if we only were allowed to cut words, like you're literally not allowed to even rewrite anything, you can only cut.
Yeah.
It helped us a lot because you could just trim out.
Yep. Trim out the
Trim out some of the
conclusions.
fat here.
Trim out some of the adjectives, adverbs. You'll be good.
Yep.
Okay, next paragraph. After this first March hearing, having gained the trust of my supervisors, I don't like that. My responsibilities expanded in the case. You
Yeah,
can just
cut
drop
out.
that.
Well, after this first March hearing, I don't think, again, I think adding in, who gives a shit what month it was?
Yep.
After the first hearing, my responsibilities expanded, period. That's fine.
I would just cut it though. I think that's again a conclusion. You could just jump right into the additional responsibilities you had, and that would be obvious. I don't know. We'll see what he says.
One more edit. I noticed this in the previous paragraph.
Yeah.
These questions, these helped address potential issues the opposing counsel might raise concerning our case.
Yeah.
We knew that it was going to be related to your case, dude.
You can just cut it.
So cut out concerning our case.
Yeah.
First sentence of this fourth paragraph, my responsibilities expanded in the case. If you are going to keep that, which Ben just wants to cut the whole sentence, but if you're going to keep it, you definitely can cut in the case.
Yeah.
We get it that you're working on a case. Okay.
All right.
He does it again in the next sentence. Watch.
I participated in the plea negotiations and ensured that the public defender received all necessary discovery in the case.
Definitely cut in the case there.
Okay. Since the trial's plea resolution, I have participated in 4 additional felony cases. Another thing here, Victor, you like the word additional. Additional is a long word that never needs to exist in any writing ever, because there's the shorter more, which is just shorter and better.
Okay.
So in these cases, I continued to learn new skills by designing materials used by the assistant district attorney during trial.
You don't need in these cases there. He keeps saying it like 1,000 times. Now I'm noticing every time he does it, but you just could have said, I lost my place. You could have just said, I continued to learn new skills by or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this statement is like so close to being awesome. It just needs some work, just a little bit of work.
Totally.
Okay. Anyways, in these cases, I continued to learn new skills by designing materials used by the assistant district attorney during trial to create the people's exhibits. I have coordinated with the local police departments to schedule visits to the crime scenes and take photographs to be used in trial.
Weird shift in tenses there. Everything was totally past tense.
Yeah, and then it became this. Yeah.
I don't know anything about like formal grammar. I don't know the names for these things.
Yeah.
But he changed from, instead of I coordinated with local police departments, I have coordinated.
Yeah.
With local police departments.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called either, but it's a weird shift.
Just cut the have there for sure. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Alongside the photographs, I created. Now he's going back to the traditional, for lack of a better term, past tense.
Yeah.
Alongside the photographs, I created a timeline that would help a jury better visualize the incident that occurred. You could just say the incident.
All right.
I have analyzed more than 80 hours of police body-worn camera footage and condensed thousands of pages of Child Protective Services reports.
Again, with the I have analyzed instead of just I analyzed.
Yeah.
I also find it very clunky to say police body-worn camera footage.
We could just say body
camera footage. Yeah. No, you don't need body-worn camera with all the dashes and shit.
No.
Police body camera footage. We get it. People know what that is.
Yeah. Anyways, I then synthesized the evidence to corresponding case narratives. It's getting a little wordy.
It's a short sentence. It's just, what does it mean?
What are the words? The words are like, what I mean by wordy is like, well, synthesized the evidence to
It's a fancy word.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's a correct use of synthesized. Synthesized the evidence to corresponding case narratives. Do you synthesize something to another thing?
You tie it, maybe? You tie the evidence to the narrative of the case?
That would be much better, because
Yeah.
tied to is a common usage, where synthesized to just doesn't sound right. It's a
From, yeah. You'd say
little
like
bit
synthesized from.
exactly. So, or
Yeah.
just I synthesize. Synthesized is like put things together.
But even then, I don't like it because I'm like kind of at a loss as to what you're actually doing with that evidence.
I think you would
pulling it
synthesize the
together.
evidence with corresponding case narratives.
That might make more sense.
But to seems to be the wrong preposition there. And I think the real problem is, I think Victor's stretching to use a fancy word, synthesized. And instead, I like your tied. But okay.
It's more concrete too, I think. You tied the evidence. Oh, I can see you finding the evidence and you're putting it in with the
Tied
case
the evidence
narrative
to the
and
narratives. Yep, got it.
now it makes sense.
Right.
Then you say, Victor continues, furthermore, I have flushed out witness interviews.
Have? Why is he doing this?
I don't know. He's going back and forth.
Yeah.
Also, flushed out is oddly like informal.
Well, it's incorrect.
Yeah, what does it mean?
I think he means fleshed out.
Fleshed out? Yeah.
Is what he means. Flushed out.
Flushed out.
Is like if you're hunting and you need to get the partridges
animals
to come out of the bushes so you could blast them. That's flushing.
Is that even flushed? Is that?
Yeah, that's flushed out. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pretty sure. Fleshed out would be to what he means, which is to add bulk to the thing. That's to complete something, or to finish it, to fill it out, to expand it would be fleshed out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a question about this. It says, should you flush out or flesh out your plan? To provide more details, you should flush out or flesh out your plan. Flesh out. Yeah.
Flesh out, yeah. Not okay.
To flush out something is to cause it to leave a hiding place. For example, just as you said, the birds were flushed out of the tree. It could also be used figuratively, as in flush out the truth. But fleshing out is to give something substance, to make it fuller or more nearly complete. Okay. So you fleshed out witness interviews by crafting questions that, that's what you were trying to do. You're trying to flesh out the details by crafting questions that helped the witnesses expand their testimony. By the way, furthermore is just like additional. It's a big, clunky, heavy word you don't need. You could just say, I also
or just not even. Out. Why do you even need that?
I fleshed out. Yeah.
I fleshed out witness interviews by crafting questions that help. That's already too clunky. Victor spent more time editing the top of this statement than he did the bottom of the statement. you can tell the writing got worse. Halfway through the statement, Victor's writing went to shit because he didn't spend enough time editing the last couple paragraphs here. It's very clunky. I fleshed out witness interviews by crafting questions. Just put I crafted questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Finally, using information that was acquired midway through cases, I wrote addendums to the court to add charges to existing cases. Using information that was acquired midway through cases. This is super wordy. You know what everybody's complaining about? They're going, hey, Victor, your thing sounds like a resume. It's because this paragraph right here, the second to last paragraph, sounds like a freaking resume. I feel like it's not a narrative to me. I like I sentences that flow together. These just seem like, here's a bullet point, here's another bullet point, here's another bullet point, here's another bullet point. I don't see how they fit into the story because they actually have to do with all the cases as opposed to one case. This is like going too high level and trying to be detailed at the same time.
Yep. He should have stuck with one anecdote, or if he was finished with the first anecdote, he could have transitioned into a second anecdote to demonstrate other stuff. Instead, he was like, oh, let me just go 40,000 feet and give you the full thing of my entire job. And we're not interested in that. We want a story. I just did a quick Control F there for the word case. It's 19 times he uses the word case. He's using it multiple times in the same sentence, which I don't think he would do if he had read this out loud. I mean, just listen to it. Finally, using information that was acquired midway through cases, I wrote addendums to the court to add charges to existing cases.
Yeah.
What? Cases right before the comma and then cases at the end of the sentence?
Yeah.
It just sounds terrible. You read it out loud. You would never put that in a speech. So it doesn't need to be in your personal statement.
Also, I would replace, if we even need to say this, but if you're going to say this, information that was acquired midway through cases, I would just say using new evidence.
Right.
Like, it's
exactly.
very wordy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could say when information was acquired, or like you could start with, I wrote addendums to the court to incorporate new information or something like that. But he lost us, didn't he?
He did.
He had us in the first few paragraphs. It was great. And then he just lost us with it's poor writing. This is his longest paragraph and it's his worst paragraph. That's almost always the case, by the way. Your longest paragraph is probably your worst. Your longest sentence is probably your worst. And so it's like I don't know. He ran out of time or something, but he didn't edit it.
Yeah. Stepping back, I think his fatal mistake was he was talking about an individual case, and then he started this paragraph within these cases. So he backed up and he's like, okay, let me talk about all the cases I've worked on, which then just kind of devolves into resume bullet points.
Each one of these
about a particular case.
We don't want to know about 4 additional felony cases. But just tell us about one of them.
We get it that you did more than this.
Also,
and that you have the skills. Yeah.
You can kind of take artistic license, by the way. You can fictionalize it. If you did one thing in one case and then one thing in another case and then one thing in another case,
sure.
For purposes of your personal statement, that can all be one case. It's fine. You can kind of, we're not going to go investigate to make sure that you actually did each of these things in the one case. You can just say, this is what I do. I did this, I did that. But you don't have to
really want to include those things. I don't know if it's even necessary. I think Victor feels this need to be like, look at all this stuff I did. And it's like, I'm not feeling more impressed by you just knowing, oh, you also reviewed footage and then you also did this with let's just through 2 or 3 on their own. Let's just end it there. It is a challenging task. Preparing for opposing counsel and cross-examination is a challenging task. You can show us you did that well. I'm happy. I'm sold.
I agree. Yeah. Pick some of these things. You don't need to give us an exhaustive list of all the things you've ever done. You're supposed to be telling us about some interesting things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, cut it.
Last paragraph. As my work throughout my 5 cases at the district attorney's office deepened.
Why are we counting?
It's weird. It's almost like if you had talked about 2 cases anecdotally, I would have assumed you did like 10. But now you're telling me you did 5.
I would have assumed dozens. I would assume that you're an established part of the team, critical to the team. And instead now I'm thinking, oh, so you were like an intern and they let you help out on 5 cases? Think about that. That's important.
Yeah, and then you go back to the March 2020 thing. You're like, wait, it's September 2020?
Oh, so you just started in March and you helped out on 5 cases? Because I had you in a suit. Now I'm thinking, yeah, you're wearing a suit, but you just bought it
loose.
At Marshall's and you only bought it for this job, this internship that you're probably not even getting paid for. Yeah, it doesn't look, that's real weird how adding that fact can immediately make us spin off into this weird direction where it just undercuts the whole mission here.
As my work throughout my 5 cases at the district attorney's office deepened.
Your work deepened?
Oh no,
I know.
Victor, you're realizing something?
He knew that we were going to hate it. He put it in the email. He put, you're going to hate the conclusion. And I totally hate this. I realized a fundamental truth about the practice of law
Oh my gosh.
that indelibly changed how I viewed the profession. Victor, are you fucking kidding me? Do you think they give one shit what you think about the practice of law?
They know you're foolish enough to join it. Well, you know what happened here is Victor didn't have this conclusion paragraph. He wrote this high level in the 4 cases paragraph. Everybody shat on that, which they really should have. His solution should have been to take it out, but his solution was to try to come back with like, let me talk about what I think. And this doesn't solve the problem.
This is horrible, man, because it's a conclusion. It's meaningless. What fundamental truth? Victor, you're not qualified in our estimation. Okay, we're trying to decide whether we want to admit you to our law school. You are not a lawyer. By the way, law students also aren't qualified to realize any fundamental truths about the practice of law. Law students don't practice law.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they do at a clinic or something, but they have no interest whatsoever in your vision of the law. And it's so funny. Indelibly changed how I viewed the profession. I didn't give a shit, Victor, what you thought about the profession before or during or after this epiphany you had.
Yeah.
You didn't know shit before, and you don't know shit now either. It's you instantly changed the way, like we were fully willing to picture you as this badass who like has all this practical time in the trenches. The second you start telling us your opinions about it,
rhapsodizing.
Now you look like a college kid.
Yep. Also, take a look at this next sentence in the last paragraph.
Brutal.
Throughout my internship.
Brutal.
Oh, okay. So it is an internship
Yep.
after all. Also, you just said throughout. As my work throughout my 5 cases at the district attorney's office deepened. Whoa, you're this like, you've been in the trenches. Now we know it's an internship. Like this is going all over the place. You need to cut.
The whole second half of the statement needs to go.
Yeah.
And he either needs to expand on the first anecdote, more like what you had in the first few paragraphs. The first few paragraphs were great.
Yeah.
More like that. You can expand on the one anecdote, or you can give me another anecdote.
Mm-hmm.
Do not say the word internship. Jesus.
Yeah.
I thought you were like getting paid. I mean, it could be a paid internship, by the way. Don't say the word internship. It makes it now you're a college kid. Now it's, He spent a semester at the DA's office and he thinks he knows everything.
And he's got an indelibly changed view of the profession.
Wow. Okay.
Anyways, he continues, I discovered each case's complex puzzle. And you discovered each case's complex puzzle?
What the fuck are you even talking about?
Oh, man.
What does that mean? I discovered each case's complex puzzle. It's not just a puzzle, Ben. It's a complex puzzle. And what did Victor do? Wait, did he solve the puzzle? No.
He discovered it.
He discovered the puzzle. Like, hey, guys, look.
There's a puzzle here.
It's a
but
puzzle.
I have yet to resolve it.
Wow.
He continues. He discovered each case's complex puzzle and the importance of small details and precise language. No, I'm so glad you're coming around to that. I found fascinating.
Don't care. I don't care what you think or feel. I don't give a shit. I care what you did.
How a single word in a clause could substantially impact a grand scale case.
A what?
A grand scale case. I don't know what that means.
What now?
A grand
you-
scale case.
Victor,
Case.
Victor, are you really telling law schools about the importance of words in legal matters? Like, do you think the person reading this is going to be like, oh, I never thought about that? Wow. You mean legal cases can turn on precise use of words? Holy shit. You know, like,
He continues, one word would change a felony to a misdemeanor.
no fucking shit.
The battle of intricacies that take place at the seemingly minor details eventually decides a case.
No shit.
No
Two,
shit.
battle of intricacies. What? Third, the battle of intricacies that take place at the seemingly minor details. Well, you meant in the minor details. What happened here? This went from one of the best personal statements we've read on the show to one of the worst.
Yeah.
It just
reminds
Go ahead.
It reminds me of, that old adage, when you make the sale, you shut up.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
Like, this is where you're like, oh, yeah, sweet, Victor. We want you on our team, and we want you number one. And then it's like, dear God, stop talking. You have just revealed your naivete.
Totally.
Everything has just unraveled.
This has a lot of potential. Victor has a lot of potential. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be a great applicant, but he needs to blow up the second half of this personal statement and just do more of what he was doing in the first half. In golf, Ben, there's an old adage. I'm going to be stretching this, like brutally stretching it. But in golf, there's an adage that we say, whipped cream on shit. Okay. And what whipped cream on shit is when you hit your first shot into the lake, and then you hit your second shot into the lake, and then your third shot, you like knock it in the hole for a triple bogey or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'll say whipped cream on shit.
Yeah, got it.
Victor did the reverse of that. Victor put shit on whipped cream.
Whipped cream.
Yeah, because
everybody's about to dive in, and then we're like, whoa.
Victor's like, let me just add this one last dollop of shit on top of this. Oh boy.
Okay.
We love you, Victor. He knows. He knows we love him, but
yeah, well,
he
we're
really
saving him the shit.
Yeah.
The constant conflict of technicalities and the enjoyment that I derived from them.
Don't care.
Wait. You derived enjoyment from the constant conflict of technicalities? Okay.
Right. We don't believe you and we don't care. That's amazing.
Reaffirmed my conviction.
Don't give a shit. You don't have, Victor, you're not entitled to have convictions.
You're not entitled.
You're not. Yeah. You will change your mind about literally everything when you go to law school and start practicing law. You don't have convictions, Victor. You certainly don't have convictions that have been reaffirmed.
Yeah. Your conviction that a career in law is the best course for me.
We'll be the judge of that, not you.
Yep.
We know you want to be a lawyer. You've worked in a law firm. You're now applying to law school. The statement you think really your conviction has been reaffirmed that law is the right course for you.
You're also like missing the point of this, right? It's like talking to someone and trying to convince them to go on a date with you. You're like, I have decided that you're the best date for me. oh, okay, well, we're trying to figure out whether you're the best date for me.
Yeah.
And we don't really care if I'm great for you.
Yeah, sex is a thing that I like to have, and we should have. I'm firmly convinced. I
I've
firmly
reaffirmed my
believe.
conviction.
It's like, well, yeah, you're buying me dinner. I was expecting that that's probably where this was going to go. I don't know that you need to be so explicit about the ultimate plans here. We all know what's. Oh boy, Victor. Yeah.
Thank you for writing in. Yeah, you got
Thank
a
you,
lot of.
Victor.
Yeah, you got the chops to do this right. You got to cut some of your wording out as we explained in the beginning, and then do exactly what Nathan said, and just end it. End it with one sentence. I want to continue this kind of work as an attorney or something like that. If you want to,
Exactly. If you even, you're.
you don't need to. You don't
Tell
need
us about your work in the law office, and we will picture you as, oh, this dude's been working in the DA's office, and now he's applying to my law school.
I
Sweet.
wonder why he's applying to law school. That's bizarre.
Wait, do you think that Victor might want to become a lawyer? Yeah, we got that part. When you paid money to apply to the law school, we understand that you are looking to be a lawyer. So, okay, the entire last paragraph blows. I mean, just get rid of that entirely. Please don't tell us about your fundamental truths of law, any epiphany. No.
Yeah.
What did you do? And there's going to be tons, right? Because I mean, I'm sure that he did tons of shit on that first case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
More like that.
Yep.
Talk about another case if you want, but keep it like that. And just spare us the the conclusions are having the exact opposite of the intended effect. It is precisely wrong.
Yep.
Shit on whipped cream.
Thank you. That was awesome. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Thinking LSAT and at LSAT Demon. You can follow Nathan at nfox on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at Thinking LSAT. If you're so inclined, please leave us a review on iTunes. It helps promote the show, which we have yet to do in any other way. And email us at help@thinkinglsat.com. We love your questions, most of them, and want to answer them. That was episode 265 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.